Looks like I broke another fin. How do you repair that? That's what I'm going to talk about in this episode.
Welcome to Advanced Construction Videos, where we show you how to tackle rocketry building techniques and more. On our website, we sell kits, motors, building supplies, and electronics. So come and learn, shop, build, and fly when you visit us at apogeerockets.com.
Hi, I'm Tim Van Milligan from Apogee Components. It's gonna happen. You're gonna crash a rocket and it's gonna be damaged. And you wanna fly the rocket again, so you're gonna have to repair it. So you need in your arsenal a bunch of techniques on repairing rockets. Now this particular rocket, it was its maiden flight, and I was taking photos of the rocket taking off for the Apogee website, and something happened. You know, as soon as it cleared the launch rod, it just went unstable, and it never really got really high, and it came down and it busted two fins. So that fin busted, and then this fin busted. And then we have a little bit of damage here on the launch lug down at the bottom, a little bit here. The nose cone, it bounced. That wasn't good. And then I had a little bit of a zipper right here. But in this episode, I want to talk about the fins because that's the most major repair. And then maybe I'll cover some of this other stuff other times. And I think we've done some of those repairs before. Since I got two fins out, I'm going to try two different techniques. So I'm going to do this video on one technique, and I'm going to do another one on a different technique. And I'm just kind of playing myself. So you're wondering what actually happened that caused the rocket to go unstable. It wasn't the rocket itself. Through photo analysis of the flight, since I was taking pictures of the rocket taking off, and I had a friend that was also videotaping it with his cell phone, and I got that footage. They went through it frame by frame, and what we discovered was as soon as the rocket ignited and was traveling up the launch rod, the ejection charge went off. It was a reloadable motor, so there is a high probability that the reload was assembled incorrectly. And gas got by that forward O-ring and got up to the ejection charge and set it off. Because as soon as it left the tower, you could see it starting to separate here, and then about 30 feet up, it was completely separated, and the rocket was burning fine. And then that's what caused the zipper, because the upper part came down, the shock cord came out, and it caused a little zipper, and then it just flailed around and then finally landed and busted the fins. So that's what happened. So in this video, I'm going to try to repair at least one of these fins. First, I want to look at the damage here. And this here is the base of the fin. And you can see up here at the front edge, it's lighter colored. That is paper. It was glued here to the paper tube, and the paper actually delaminated. So people always ask me, what's the best glue to use? And the answer is probably doesn't matter that much, because it's the paper that the fin is glued to that's the weak part. The glue is always the most strong. So the paper delaminated, and then the fin can break. And it was also a through-the-wall fin. And if you look at the base of this fin, I actually used super glue when I was assembling the rocket to glue it in. And yeah, that just snapped right off. I have becoming more and more a fan of putting on internal fillets. In other words, where the tube goes into the rocket, it's going to touch the tube here, and I want to get a fin fillet on the inside of that tab as well as on the outside here. And you can kind of see there is a fin fillet here, and it was a nice fillet, and that one was made out of epoxy. but the one on the inside, non-existent. So this is why when I designed the Zephyr kit, it's our 4-inch high power kit. You can see a poster of it over here on the wall. When you assemble it, you actually remove the back centering ring during the assembly so you can get inside the rocket to put on a fin fillet of epoxy on the inside of the rocket. That makes it so that the weak part is still the paper, but where the tab hits the paper, you got a fin fillet going this way and you got a fin fillet going that way. And so it's grabbing a lot more paper. So it's going to be a lot harder. And it also has to bend before that paper will shear. So that will make a big difference using an internal fillet. And probably the best thing for the internal fillet is a structural adhesive like epoxy. Yeah, you know, you can on the outside here, gluing just with regular wood glue just to glue that edge down is probably going to be fine. But your fin fillets, you probably want something a little bit more structural, especially if it's a high power rocket like this one here. Okay, so since this is so clean, my first technique that I'm going to try here is to put an epoxying it back on, but this time I'm going to use fix-it epoxy to make the fillet on the inside. So how am I going to make a fillet on the inside when there's already a centering ring right there? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill 2 holes, one on each side of the fin tab. And I'm going to snake in some epoxy clay and then try to smooth it out, just working from the outside of the rocket. So let's get started with that. Let me get my Dremel here. So the dowel that I'm going to use a 1/4-inch dowel. I don't know what I did with it. It's here. It's actually, I'm going to use a steel rod, but you probably can use a wood dowel for this. But I wanted to use steel because I wanted it stiff, because I'm going to be inside and putting pressure on that fin fillet to kind of conform it to the edge of the tab. And I don't want it to bend and break. You know, if it's wood, there's a possibility it could break, but you might get away with a wood rod. Okay, so first I'm going to drill my holes here, and I'm going to be doing this upside down so that you can see it. So that's going to make it harder for me. So I'm going to turn on my drill. Which one am I doing? This one. Okay. Okay, so I have 2 small holes in there right now, and then I'm going to make them wider with a different bit so that I can get that 1/4-inch dowel in there. And these are going to have to be wide enough to where you can move it around quite a bit. So these holes are going to be kind of ugly, but the bottom of the rocket you don't look at too often, so I'm not too worried about that. I'm getting my tube. All right, so I got into my tube a little bit here, got into the paper, but I didn't go all the way through, so I'm fine. I can probably stiffen that up later, so I'm trying to look at this. I don't know if you can see much, but I got 2 holes here, one on each side, and then I can get my dowel through. And I'd only need to get my dowel in that much. I want to be able to smear around the epoxy on the inside. Okay. Okay, so here's my fin. This one did have a little bit of paper on it. A little bit of glue right there. And it had a little delamination there, which is this part of the fin fillet there. So first I'm going to put this back in. It's actually pretty good, pretty tight. So what I am going to do is I'm going to glue it in place first using super glue. And the purpose of that is just, I'm not going to use epoxy because it's going to be a pretty big mess if I do. And I don't want to do a lot of sanding. So I'm gonna tack it down with super glue and then put the fin fillets in from the bottom to make it strong. Okay, so let me get some gloves on, get some paper towels. Okay. That looks pretty good there. So now where that crack is, what I think I'll do, I won't use any structural adhesive on that because that fin fillet right there is also pretty good. So for that, I'll probably use wood filler or a Bondo type thing just to fill it, because it's more cosmetic at anything at this point. All the strength is in that tab, so that's where I want to concentrate my effort on fixing that. Okay, so what I'm going to use for the epoxy is I'm going to use the Fix-It epoxy. This is a thick putty. It's part A and part B. The reason I'm using the Fix-It, we sell another epoxy clay called Bond-Aid. Bond-Aid will be hard in like 5 minutes, but you don't have a lot of working time, where this stuff, I've got over an hour of working time. So I can make sure that I put a good fillet in there. So I'm going to grab an equal glob of each, mix it up, and then I'll be right back. All right, the epoxy has now been mixed, and I'm going to split it into 2, one for each side of the fin. And then I have to roll this into a snake. And the thickness of the snake, or the worm, has to fit through my hole. This is probably a lot of epoxy, because remember our fin tab is only about like that long. So let me see if I can drop it in there. and you're doing everything blind, so you can't see what's going on. Okay, so I know it's got to go this way, so if I keep the rocket horizontal, it should lay down flat. Oops, it came out against that fin. Got a little bit too much. Okay. So now, this is going to be hard. Let's see if I can do it from the side. So this has got to go in there. I want to get it and smoosh it down against the tube. I'm in as far as I'm going to go. Okay, so that's one side, and let's try the other side. If you have extra, I don't think it's going to hurt to put more in there just to make sure that it's completely a good fillet all along the whole length. Do it this way so it sits flat against the side of the tube, because I want it down here on the inside. So I'm gonna come around this side and see if I can do this for you. A little sawdust coming out. This is working pretty good. My dowel is way too long though. Okay. Okay. So you get the kind of the idea here is I'm pushing it against that fin tab. So that when it cures, this will be rock hard. So this stuff that I'm using here, the Fix-It, takes 24 hours to cure, or at least overnight. So at this point, I have to stop and let it cure, and then we can test it. And then later on, we can fill these holes in the back. And I'll also use some Fix-It for that. All right, so I'm gonna let it cure and then I'll be back.